Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Just like last time, I'm going to tell you a special story about a wonderful place. If you're a fan of the quiet, peaceful, and wholesome, you've come to the right place. I upload several times a month, offering stories that give flight to your imagination in the style of bedtime stories for all ages. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't have to miss out on any of my uploads. I started this channel because I wanted to use my voice to give people comfort and peace. I love writing stories, and people have loved listening to me speak all my life, so it seemed like a natural next step. I'd appreciate any ideas for stories I can tell or feedback on what you've heard so far. My goal is to make this relaxing, enjoyable experience for my listeners, whether you're trying to calm down or trying to go to sleep. Now, without further ado, let's get to the story. When last we saw our friend Faye, she had just arrived at her new home, nestled between the hills, and had met the portly and mustachioed mayor, Henry Potter, along with his bubbly daughter, Pippa. Tonight, we'll see her finish setting up the cinnamon sip and enjoy a sweet treat with someone kind, talented, and very handsome. I invite you to come with me on a journey tonight. Curl up, get comfortable, close your eyes, and imagine. We are going to Willow Creek Hollow. The only sound in the cinnamon sip was the gentle crackling of the fire and the soft ticking of the big gold clock on the wall. Faye had spent her first full day in Willow Creek Hollow, cleaning and decorating her new shop. Dusty surfaces, smudgy windows, and filthy floors had all been scrubbed until they shined. Her hands were pruned and worn from the water, a small price to pay for the satisfaction of watching the space slowly transform. To her, the cinnamon sip was more than just a coffee shop. It was a blank canvas, waiting for her to cover it in color and life. The room smelled of lavender-scented cleaning solution, lemon wood polish, and window cleaner. But the smell of the hearth competed with those more practical scents to create a complicated and pleasing dance of aromas that made her feel both clean and at home. She knew that soon the smells of coffee, spices, breads, and pastries would join the pleasing dance of scents, and that thought caused a smile to rise on her freckled cheeks. Faye took a step back to admire her work. The long wooden counter, which she had scrubbed and polished until it gleamed, was the warm centerpiece of the room. Jars filled with cinnamon sticks, whole coffee beans, and dried orange slices sat in a neat row, their contents adding to the tapestry of aromas. A vase was placed right next to the cash register, filled with wildflowers Faye had picked on her way to the shop just that morning. There was a crystal-clear glass case that made up one end of the enclosed space where she would be working. She knew that it would soon display her treats to the Cinnamon Sip's brand new customers. Behind the counter, she had hung a large chalkboard menu, which she had illuminated with track lighting that reminded her of the city. Its blank surface was waiting for the day's offerings to be written in her neat, stylish script. She knew that on the very next morning, customers would read it as they waited in a neat, orderly line. She'd arranged small wooden tables and chairs throughout the room, each one polished like the counter and decorated with small vases of wildflowers. The tables were perfectly positioned to encourage quiet conversation and easy laughter. She could just see the imaginary villagers of her mind sitting there and sharing the stories of their day. Faye realized that every object she had placed, from the wildflower vase on the counter to the coffee machines behind it, was a deliberate choice. The shop now felt like an extension of herself, a place filled with warmth, purpose, and the quiet promise of new beginnings. It was no longer a tired old bistro, but a living, breathing, and intimate space, ready to welcome its first excited guests. The afternoon sun, a gentle, buttery light, streamed through the newly cleaned windows, illuminating the tiny dust motes dancing in the air like little white stars. They were quietly celebrating her work. A sudden noise startled Faye. It was a sharp, insistent knock on the front door she simply hadn't been expecting. Her eyes shifted immediately to the glass pane, and she saw her new friend, Pippa Potter, standing there, waving with a bright, pretty smile. She laughed at her own expense, realizing how distracted she'd been, and moved swiftly over to the door. With nimble fingers, she unlocked it and popped it open for Pippa. "You know you don't need to lock your door, Faye," Pippa said, just as soon as she was standing in the entrance. She brought a flurry of cold autumn air in with her. The young woman wore a long yellow coat with big brown buttons, gray leggings, and a matching brown hat on top of her blonde curls. "Well, I just wanted to be safe, Pippa," Faye said, her heart still beating like a drum from her friend's arrival. "You are safe, Faye," Pippa said, her expression still bright. She had brown eyes kissed with a halo of gold that seemed to give her an almost magic quality. "Nothing bad ever happens in Willow Creek." Faye knit her brows together. In the city she had just moved away from yesterday, all sorts of bad things happened. She had to live her life looking over her shoulder and being skeptical of people. Hearing that Willow Creek Hollow was different was both a relief and a curiosity. "It may take some time for me to get used to that," she said finally, closing the door behind Pippa. Her rebellious fingers went to lock the door, but she stopped them in their reach. She was a Hollow native now, and in the Hollow, their doors were always open. She retreated from the door and walked further back into the shop with Pippa. "I'm surprised to see you," she said, absent-mindedly adjusting a few wildflowers in the nearest table vase. "I thought the entire village would be getting ready for bed now." "Oh, no, the village doesn't shut down that early, silly. I just went home for supper. Mama made pot roast. You should have joined us. I thought I'd swing back by once I was absolutely stuffed to see if you needed a hand with anything else. But it looks like you worked a miracle in here. It shines." Pippa's eyes scanned the cozy shop with wide, childlike expression. It had been her who spent all morning and afternoon helping Faye move heavy boxes, unpack, and start cleaning. She had only known Pippa for about 24 hours, and the woman was already the most generous friend she'd ever known. "It does, doesn't it?" Faye asked, beaming at the fruit of her labor, managing to forget her tired muscles and pruny fingers for a moment. "It actually feels like mine now." For a few seconds, Pippa took in the ambiance of the space. The clean floors, the polished tables, the smell of lemon cleaner, wildflowers, orange slices, coffee beans, and cinnamon sticks. But then her face turned much more stern and disapproving, rather like a mother. "Wait a minute. Have you been here working through supper time? Did you even stop to eat?" Faye shrugged, trying to seem nonchalant, even as her growling stomach betrayed her. "I had a few bites of granola bar, but I was mostly just focused on getting these floors scrubbed. I wanted to be done with the worst of it. Then, when I was done with that, I wanted to clean, well, everything else." Pippa put her hands on her hips. Her pink blush deepened by what looked like genuine frustration. "Faye Finch, you've been scrubbing this whole place by yourself for hours. You can't run a coffee shop on granola bars. In Willow Creek Hollow, we eat when the sun goes down, and we eat with people. My father would have your head if he knew you were skipping meals on your first full day here." Her tone, though chastising, was underscored with real care. This thing, which was small to Faye, was clearly quite big for Pippa. Faye looked confused for an instant, but then she suddenly burst into a swell of feminine laughter at the unexpected scolding. "Well, what Mayor Potter doesn't know can't hurt him. Besides, I might have actually gotten a bit hungry after the lights started to fade. And when I get hungry, I get inspired." Faye gestured with an almost mischievous grin toward the back of the shop. All at once, the newest and most welcome aroma made itself known to them. It was warm, doughy, and sweet. It added to the scent of cinnamon and mingled with the wood smoke. I just couldn't wait another second. Pippa sniffed the air, her eyes widening. "Wait, is that bread?" Faye's pink lips turned up in an eager, pleasant smile. "It's even better than bread. I won a few neighborhood contests with these babies. Come on, let me show you." Faye led Pippa toward the kitchen, where a single oven light cast a soft, amber glow. I had a mix of ingredients tucked away, and once the cleaning was almost done, I thought, why not test the oven? It wouldn't feel like the cinnamon sip without a proper cinnamon scent, would it? She reached for a thick oven mitt. My famous sourdough cinnamon rolls are about 5 minutes from being perfect. And I made enough for both of us. The two of them bent over to look into the oven and feasted their eyes on 4 rising rolls in a small pan, just as the warm, sweet aroma of sugary dough was pulling them even closer to the oven. The bell above the front door jingled, a soft, refreshing sound that echoed in the newly silent shop. They walked back out behind the counter, surprised. A man stood in the doorway, framed by the cool evening air. Faye had never seen him before, but that wasn't surprising, as she had barely met anyone from the village yet. The quiet grace of his bearing and the kind, thoughtful depth in his warm, brown eyes immediately struck her. He was tall and handsome, with dark hair slightly damp from the evening mist, and he wore a simple, dark sweater that only emphasized his natural, quiet strength. His eyes swept across the polished room with a look of genuine curiosity. Pippa beamed, immediately recognizing the newcomer. "Julian!" she exclaimed, her attention immediately shifting. She hurried forward and gave him a quick, familiar hug. "I thought you would be home painting by now." Julian offered a gentle smile. I just closed up the studio. I saw the light on here and noticed the door wasn't locked, so I thought I'd check to make sure everything was all right. Mrs. Oliver used to forget to turn off her outside lamp sometimes. His gaze then settled on Faye, a respectful and kind intensity in his eyes. Pippa was quick to make the introduction. Faye, this is Julian Laurent. He owns the Stone and Oak studio, right down the circle. He's the artist I told you about. Julian, this is Faye Finch, the new owner of the SIP. She's from the city, and she's already breathing new life into this place. Faye extended a hand, feeling a sudden, completely unexpected flutter of nerves. It's lovely to meet you, Mr. Laurent. Julian's handshake was firm and warm. The pleasure is entirely mine, Miss Finch. Please, call me Julian. And you have truly worked a miracle in here. The space is beautiful. It feels much lighter than it ever did before. He paused, taking a deliberate, deep breath of air, letting the scent roll over him. But honestly, that smell alone is a masterpiece. Whatever you have baking, it smells absolutely incredible. Faye's cheeks warmed at the sincerity of his compliment. It's a batch of my famous sourdough cinnamon rolls. They just need a minute more. The memory of Pippa's earlier scolding returned, and a sudden, shared generosity filled her. In the hollow, meals were meant to be shared. Since you were kind enough to check up on us, you should stay. You are very welcome to be the first people in Willow Creek Hollow to try them. Julian's eyes lit up with obvious delight. I wouldn't miss that for the world. Thank you. Perfect, Faye said, feeling a rush of excitement and purpose. She gave Julian a bright smile, one that felt more open and genuine than any she had worn in the city. Make yourself comfortable by the fire, both of you. I'll be right back with the treats. With that, she turned and headed to the kitchen, the scent of fresh baked sweetness guiding her way. Faye practically skipped back into the kitchen, the unexpected presence of Julian having given her a fresh burst of energy. The small amber glow of the oven was like a blazing beacon. She pulled on the thick mitts and carefully slid the small pan out, the heat radiating immediately against her hands. The 4 cinnamon rolls were a study in golden brown perfection, their sourdough edges slightly crispy, and their sticky sweet centers bubbling faintly. She set the pan on the butcher block island to cool, and the cinnamon sugar perfume intensified, wrapping itself around her like a cozy shawl. As she waited for the rolls to firm up, a sudden, vivid memory surfaced, one she hadn't consciously thought of in years. It was her childhood kitchen, bathed in the sharp, early light of a Sunday morning. Her mother stood at a worn wooden table, her flour-dusted hands moving with practiced speed as she rolled and shaped the dough. Faye, too small to reach the counter, sat perched on a wobbly stool, her little fingers dipped in the bowl of icing for a forbidden taste. Patience, little baker, her mother would say, her voice soft but firm. A perfect roll needs time. It needs to know it's loved. That was it. The secret she had inherited. This wasn't just a recipe. It was a memory of warmth, safety, and a quiet domestic love that felt miles away from the hurried life she had just lived. Over the years, Faye had tinkered with the recipe, swapping out ingredients, perfecting the sourdough starter until it achieved this perfect balance of savory tang and comforting sweetness. This batch, baked in the oven of a new shop in a quiet village, felt like the final step in that journey of perfection. The rolls had cooled just enough. She grabbed a wooden spoon and the bowl of gooey vanilla icing. The icing was thick and glossy, and she poured it generously over the still warm rolls. It settled into the swirls of the cinnamon, drizzling down the sides and filling the air with a final, overwhelming cloud of sugary goodness. Faye pulled a plate from a box, placed the 4 steaming, glistening rolls onto it, and wiped her hands on her apron, taking a deep, satisfied breath of the cinnamon-sweet air. She turned to carry the warm treasure back to her guests. Faye emerged from the kitchen, the plate of glistening cinnamon rolls held like a treasure. Julian and Pippa were seated at one of the small, round tables near the hearth, the flickering firelight casting warm shadows across their faces. Just as she set the plate down, a low, steady patter began outside, announcing the return of the persistent Willow Creek rain. She handed one roll to Julian, whose quiet eyes seemed to shine in the firelight, and another to Pippa, whose enthusiasm was already visible on her face. Faye settled into a third chair, pulling the next roll onto her own napkin, the smell of butter and sugar now entirely dominating the space. Pippa was the first to take a bite, and her eyes immediately widened with unrestrainable wonder. She didn't speak, but a low, happy sound of pure satisfaction escaped her. "Faye," she finally managed after swallowing. "This isn't just good. This is a problem. The entire village is going to be packed in here every single morning, fighting over these." Julian took a bite, his reaction quieter, but no less profound. He chewed slowly, thoughtfully, savoring the moment before meeting Faye's gaze. "Pippa's right," he said, his voice a gentle rumble. "This is extraordinary. The sourdough tang is subtle, but it gives the sweetness so much depth. It feels comforting, like something made with tremendous care." He looked around the cozy room. "Miss Finch, you haven't just opened a shop. You've brought the village its new soul." Faye felt a blush creep up her neck, her heart swelling with a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. "It was my mother's recipe," she whispered, offering them the bowl of extra icing, which Pippa immediately accepted. "I just perfected it." As the rain outside grew heavier, the small trio talked easily. Pippa shared funny anecdotes about the eccentric local baker, who now had stiff competition, and Julian spoke quietly about the inspiration he drew from the misty light of the hollow for his paintings. Faye found herself laughing freely, sharing small stories about the fast-paced life she'd left behind. And for the first time, she felt absolutely certain she belonged. The last remnants of the cinnamon rolls vanished from the plate. The 3 friends sat in contented silence, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the soft, rhythmic falling of the rain against the glass. The silence was not empty. It was full of warmth, friendship, and the quiet promise of the life that was just beginning. Thank you for listening, my friends. Time spent with good friends is always honey sweet. Never underestimate the joy in life that comes from cleaning up the mess and making something simple and good. If you found a moment of peace tonight, please show your care for me by liking this video and subscribing to hear more. May your night be filled with the sound of rain, the feeling of warmth, and the warm sweetness that reminds you how good it is to live clean and in the light. Jesus loves you, and so do I. Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.